Good morning, Rachelle. Thanks for coming to Coffee with Kristy.
Good morning. Happy to be here.
So today we wanted to talk about title insurance. When people buy a house, it's a very scary, what is title insurance? They just don't understand why they get it. Most buyers are not even sure what title is. So let's start with what's title. What is...
Well, that term is used interchangeably and sometimes used wrong. So some people refer to title as their deed, and some people refer to title as a title policy. And then some people they just don't know what title is. So traditionally in Baldwin County, our contracts call out that the seller will provide clear and marketable title to their buyers. And so what that means is you will typically close at a title company. They'll go through the examination, they'll prepare a commitment, clear any requirements, and from that point you're either told yes, you have clear title, or no, you don't. And it's super, super important for a buyer to have clear title. Your title policy covers what you can't see. If you can find something on public record, you can easily clear it. But if you can't see it, like fraud, typical is heirs. Not all the heirs came in and signed. You don't want somebody coming back to you 10 years later saying, hey, I have an interest in this property. That's where your policy comes in. So if someone comes back and says, hey, this is my property, you file a title claim, you get it resolved.
Wonderful. So that's pretty quick sum up of title insurance for sure. But when the seller traditionally pays title insurance, that's not really all you do. You have to balance with the bank and the loan and the numbers. So explain how that works to get the buyer and seller to an actual closing.
So that's all done behind the scenes. And hopefully we as title agents make that as seamless as possible so no one even realizes that that's happening. So traditionally we receive a contract, we'll reach out, introduce ourselves, request pertinent information that maybe we didn't receive with the order. And it's also helpful to go ahead and reach out to the buyer and seller and say, hey, I'll be handling this for you. Let me know if you have any questions. And often they do, because it's stressful. And if it's their first closing, they don't know what to expect. So then once we receive the title commitment back, we'll coordinate with the lenders, send them all the documents that they need. We'll do our balancing act where we go back and forth and say, okay, well, here's the numbers I have. What do you have? We do a scrub, make sure escrow accounts are set up correctly, because we don't want somebody being short on their escrow account if it's time to pay taxes or insurance later. And then we get to serve all the papers at closing, and that's important because that's the happy part. So once we get everybody scheduled to come in, typically you don't have any issues. I mean, if you do, you just smooth them up real quick. But once you get to closing, it's pretty great.
Yes. Now, closing. Nowadays, we can do electronic closings or digital closings.
We do offer, I offer, I'm not sure who else in the area does, but we do offer e-signing for cash. And I'll also even go as far as to send the deed out to the seller ahead of time. A lot of folks are traveling and they don't want to be tied down to a certain day or time to come in and sign with me. So if I need to coordinate and make it easier for them, that's what we want to do.
Wonderful. So back to title insurance policy, I just thought of one thing. We know that the seller traditionally pays for it, but there's also another document that most sellers get kind of confused about called the seller affidavit.
Yes, so that'll be their gains form. So if you are not a resident in Alabama and your sales price is greater than $300,000, we have to complete an NRAF2. Let your title company do it. So the tricky part with that is the way that it was written is that the buyer is responsible for making sure that the seller does this. So your title company really needs to step in and take control of that, because the buyer doesn't know that. They don't know that they need to have this done. And typically a seller doesn't even realize that they have to do it. So that's where your title company really needs to come into play. Now there are some exemptions. But that needs to be talked about with like an accountant, like a tax person. Sure. Your title company we can't guide you one way or the other.
So there is a lot that goes into the title insurance industry.
Yes, there's a lot of pieces in the puzzle.
Well, thanks so much for joining us at Coffee at Kristy.
Thank you.
I'm Kristy Bushaw, and I sell real estate at RE/MAX Paradise. Hope that this information gave you some knowledge to make it easier for you when you consider buying a home.